Again, and just welcome everybody. Hopefully you can hear me now, and welcome everybody to our Telos live session for tonight. It's great to see so many of you on this very cold night in Melbourne here, and thank you for joining us. And I know we're going to be in for a great little night. And before we begin today, I do want to just bring in my co-pilot for tonight. I will just need to find her because she's disappeared a little bit on my screen. But I'm just going to bring in the lovely Ella. And also I'm just letting in some more people. There's different people popping into the waiting room. So we'll take care of that. Ella, do you want to say hello and welcome everybody who's here tonight?
Hi, everyone. How are you all doing tonight? Thank you for coming. Thank you for connecting with us. We're going to have a beautiful night together. Thank you.
Fantastic. And yes, welcome once again. So to all of you who are joining us for Telos Live tonight, it's going to be a great little night. I will just keep an eye out on the waiting room too. So if you see me looking down, I'm just making sure that the others who are still popping in will actually get in. And we've got a great night ahead for you. And if it's your first time here joining us for Telos Live, I'm just going to share a little bit about it and how the night actually runs before we introduce our special guest. So Telos was actually founded probably about 2.5 years ago by Ella and myself. I know a number of you have been part of our community over that time and have been connecting with our events. And you'll know that the word telos has a couple of different meanings. It comes from the Greek, meaning the end in mind or the end purpose. And we all have a purpose in this life that we're here to share and to serve. And it also means union with spirit. And as mediums, as psychics and people who are doing energetic healing, both Ella and myself kind of knew that it was time to bring together a community of people who were like-minded, who are really connected through the heart and who are here to make a difference. And the Telos Live session started because we just felt there was a need to bring in other people, other teachers who have wisdom, who have insight, and who can really come and share and open up the energy that we're building as a community here. And I think tonight we're really going to get that connection with spirit. I could already feel it, couldn't we, Ella? You were getting butterflies beforehand, was that right?
Yes, at least I managed to ask my butterflies flying the clockwise. So at least this one.
Yeah, so she's managed to do that. And I was getting lots of energy and this nervousness. And I know now, having been on different platforms, that that's actually spirit and it's like they're getting ready. So hopefully you're getting ready too, and hopefully you're going to feel some of this energy tonight. So before I introduce our speaker, I just want to share how the night will run. Now, our Telos Live session is a bit different to our classes and other sessions. And that's because we're going to start tonight by really just, first of all, introducing our speaker. Once we've done that, we'll bring her on, and together, Ella and myself will almost have a fireside chat with Rhonda. And we'll really just go in to get her to share some of her background and some stories, and we'll really have that conversation so you can get a better feeling and you can tune in. Once we've done that, probably around 8 o'clock, we'll actually open up and we'll hand over to Rhonda, who'll be able to take us for maybe a bit of a meditation or do some spiritual sharing or teaching, whatever she feels impressed with her guides and teachers tonight. And then at the very end of the session, we will open it up to all of you for any questions you might have. And that's a great time to interact. What I would say, though, is that I am putting quite a few of you on mute for the first part of the session. And if you do have questions, and I would stay on mute just so it keeps out the background noise. But if you do have questions in that time, feel free to put them in the chat and I will moderate the chat during the first half and the second half of the session. So great. I think we're ready to begin. So let me just introduce Rhonda before I bring her onto the screen and we welcome her. So look, Rhonda's a spirit medium. She's a psychic. She's a pastoral care worker. She's also a singer and an author who's been practicing mediumship for over 25 years. And if you listen to that little song in the intro section, that is one of Rhonda's songs. That was Rhonda singing, and it had a great energy around it. Now, I've bumped into Rhonda a number of times over the last 2 years on different platforms that we've been on and shared platforms together. But I think in January I was having a bit of fun because I kept seeing Rhonda at 7 o'clock in the morning at my little cafe. I'd be there having a coffee and Rhonda would be popping in and we'd have these little conversations. And I kind of knew at that time that I really wanted to invite her on to come and do a bit of sharing because I know she's got a depth of stories and we'll probably hear a few of those tonight. But Rhonda's had a very unique upbringing. She was brought up in a funeral parlour in the rural town of Wangaratta. And that kind of opened up a doorway to spirit at that early age, which I'm sure she'll talk about. In addition, to her mediumship and psychic gifts, like I said, she's a singer too. And she was also part of a support act for Paul Kelly through the 80s. And so music is a big part of her life. And finally, she has written and compiled a lot of her stories in her book, Mystical, the Memoirs of a Medium or a Psychic Medium. And I think we're going to really hear some interesting insights tonight. So please put your hands together as I bring Rhonda onto the screen. So give her a little clap. That would be great. So welcome, Rhonda. Thank you for joining us. I think you are unmuted, so you can probably share away and say hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Les. Thanks, Ella, for having me. So it's an honour.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
It is an honor, and it's great because I have been wanting for a long time. And when it came across a couple of weeks ago, Ella and I were thinking, what do we do next for July? And you popped into mine. I thought, okay, let's do it. And you were free, and it just worked out perfectly. So I love the way that spirit world work.
Okay.
So Rhonda, let's have a little chat. I think, to start with, it'd be nice just to find out a bit about your background. But I know obviously you had this upbringing, which was probably very different to my upbringing, growing up in a funeral parlour in Wangaratta. So maybe share a little bit about that and some of the insights that you probably received from that at an early age with spirit.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Melbourne, but we moved to the funeral parlour when I was 5. I was just finished prep and stayed there till 11. So it was a good 5 years. And I think a lot of people kind of say, oh, you grew up in a funeral parlour, so that must be why, you're a medium. But I think it was more about the sensitivity of death. And I remember Mum had said to me one day, do you want to take a cup of coffee to your dad in the, because he used to put the coffins together in a room that he had out the back. So we had like the chapel where we were living and the backyard and then his workshop. And I took the coffee out and he wasn't there, but there was a dead body. So I think probably was about 8 years old. And it was, a lot of people, I guess, don't see a dead body when they're 8, or maybe they do. But I recognised that that I wasn't going to be hurt or anything like that. It was more about us leaving this world, us departing, and it was like the energy of the room had a kind of electricity in it, but the soul had gone. The soul had lived its journey and had travelled on. And I remember saying to Dad as a child once, I remember Dad saying to me once, he had a funeral that he had to do, and it was for, I think it was someone in jail or something like that. And they'd said, just bury him. And he gave him a decent service. And I remember as a kid walking into the room where he put the coffins together, and he looked up and he said to me, I could feel someone thanking me after the funeral. And I remember thinking, that's odd. But he didn't really go further into it. So I think his mindset was quite spiritual. I remember traveling to the grave sites. He used to check the grave sites. When we had the chapel, we used to sneak into it when we were little. We used to do shows, and that was my first venue. I used to sing.
And I know it was your first venue because I've heard a little bit of this story before, but you mentioned a little funny story about a tape in this chapel.
Yes.
So maybe share that one because I think that would amuse people.
Yeah. Dad came in one day, we were all sitting in the lounge room, and he said, messed with the tapes. And, you know, I knew it wasn't me. I was the eldest of what was to be 6 girls, and there was probably about 4 of us at the time. But I figured, oh, I think I know which one of my sisters did it. She's still a bit of a clown. And in those days, they had reel to reel.
Mm.
So, you know, like the tape would be, could be pulled from one reel to another. And 2 of my sisters they'd been in the chapel, they'd snuck in, and they were, you know, they were going for it. They were pulling the reel out of control. Instead of the first song being Abide With Thee by the Black Staple Singers, it was Zippity Doodah for someone's funeral. So that's what
I could imagine that was a great send-off, especially probably for the relatives who were there too, thinking, what's this song that's playing?
Really
Zippity Doodah, Zippity Day.
Well, he was really like, he was laughing so much he was crying. It was, you know, it's one of those, I guess when something's really serious and then something funny happens, it's very funny. So, but it was more about the sensitivity of that we turn to dust, you know, that we, you know, we're more than the physical, but our soul will leave the physical, and that's heartbreaking. I think as mediums, we concentrate on the connection in the next world and bringing that communicator through, that spirit communicator through. But a lot of times, you know, I would say more times than not, people want them here in the flesh, to love them and hold them and laugh with them. So those early years were an exposure to kind of that sensitivity.
Yeah, fantastic. And Ella, do you have a question? I know you probably have one.
Thank you, Les. How did your spiritual journey started? What was your awakening moment? When did you find out about your gifts?
Well, I don't know if it was finding out about my gifts, and it's a good question. Thank you, Ella. We had left the funeral parlour. I remember being in grade 6. So we came back to the city and lived in my grandmother's house, which was next to a church. It was a beautiful old Victorian house in a lovely area in Melbourne. And Mum and Dad had gone to a funeral in the afternoon. And when they got back, Dad was sitting at a table in the lounge room, and there was my sister and myself. And he poured a beer, and he put the beer can back on the table. And within a second or so, the beer can just elevated about 8 inches off the table, maybe 10. Then it didn't just elevate up. Then it moved across about 6 inches and then very slowly down. And I was about 14 because I was about 14 at the time. When that happened, the 3 of us were looking at each other because it was so miraculous. It was like God's language. I don't even, you know, I can't tell you exactly why, but it was that moment that I recognized where there's much more that we belong to. There's another layer that's so powerful. So that was the awakening moment. And the beer can touched the table, and then my mother walked into the room. So she didn't walk into the room when it was in the air. She walked into the room after it had landed back on the table. And my father said to her, "Audrey, you won't believe what's happened. The beer can just moved in the air." And she said to him, "Oh, closer to you, I suppose."
She was probably wondering how many beers he'd actually had before the beer can started moving.
Yeah. So that was the first, that was, you know, unequivocally incredible. And so that was when I was 14. But, you know, I mean, I was like any other average, you know, 14-year-old. And I knew that I wanted to do music. And I was very, I always thought I would sing, you know, even as a little girl.
Is that where the song "Little Girl" that I played at the beginning, did that kind of stem from there? Because I noticed in the song there's a lot of connection around spirit and about the girl following her dreams.
Well, yeah. There were a few pivotal chapters in my life, but I think the next the next milestone, spiritual milestone, was when we were talking before, Ella, with my Polish friends. I used to work at a food chain in Melbourne, and we would finish at 10 o'clock at night. And I had finished my shift, so I knew it was after 10. And I was driving home, and suddenly, out of nowhere, I could just see a vision of a man in the backseat of my car.
Mm.
And it was like I could feel it. I could feel in my gut. I just thought, I'm going to be attacked. My logical mind came in. I'm going to be attacked. Oh my God, where is the nearest police station? I'm just going to drive to the police station. But I didn't know where the nearest police station was. And then I was like, no, this is crazy. There can't be. Yes, there is a guy in the backseat of my car. So I thought, I've just got to stop the car and look and take a risk. I'm going to die. I don't know. And I stopped my car and I slowly turned around, and there was no one there. But the feeling was so strong, I got out of my car because I thought he's just straight behind the back seat. And then I got out, and I must look like a mad woman. I was looking, there was nothing there. And I got home and I said to Mum, something's happened tonight. And my mum's she's very psychic. She's very practical, you know. She's like, oh, whatever, well, you know. So anyway, the next day I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and I said, oh, you know, what's wrong? And she said, my dad died last night. And I said, what happened? And she said, he had a heart attack. He crawled into the back seat of his car and he died.
Wow.
And I said, what time? And she said it was about 10:30. So from that point, it was like, so I had two really major moments that, but I never thought, oh, I'm going to, you know, I'll be doing mediumistic work. But I knew that because in those days, it wasn't as presented, you know, it wasn't as kind of out there in the world. So, but I always had faith. I had faith in an afterlife. I had some evidence to prove it.
Obviously, Rhonda, spirit work hard to wake you up and to commit you for the service. So when actually this happened, when you recognize, oh my God, I actually can help people if I can be this bridge between, like, you know, the loved ones in heaven, so to speak, and the physical body. So
okay.
You had this moment when you didn't doubt any longer, and you just open up to service. Okay, well, I'm ready to step into this.
Yeah, it didn't happen straight away.
Never happened straight away.
It didn't happen. It wasn't a career path. I was 19 when I had the vision of the guy in my car, and I was probably late 20s before, maybe early 30s before I was really reading. Because I worked as a singer for like a long time, you know, in and out of work there. And when I had gone through a really major bust up in a relationship, I had gone to a clairvoyant, and I was lucky that I got a good one, you know, and because I was thinking, you know, my life's falling apart, and I was pretty angry with the universe and with God. I just thought, you know, what are you doing to me? And, you know, I thrust into the universe as a single mum, so I wasn't too happy. And, you know, she did a wonderful reading. She was connected with the VSU, and she was sensational, and she used to take students, and she said to me, you know, I've got students and I do a circle. I'll ring you when there's a space. And I didn't really think too much about it because I was gigging and trying to survive. And she rang me and she said, Rhonda, there's a space if you want to join the circle. And she said there are guides that would work with you. And it was the first time someone had said that. And I thought, what does she mean? Does she mean there's girl guides that are going to work with us or come along and join us on the day or something? And I went to the circle and my life changed. Like things changed. I started to just think differently, and it was wonderful.
It's interesting you say that, because you talked about obviously going through that tough time and then looking for help, because there's a lot of stories of some great people, whether it's Deborah Ford or Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote the Eve, Pray, Love books, who talk about those moments where they got pushed to the edge, and that's when they kind of called out to a God, to universe for help, and it was like sometimes we get stretched to that point and then something shifts. Not for everyone, but it's interesting just the similarities, what you mentioned. And can I ask a question? Because you were mentioning obviously that scene in the car, and it's the second time I've heard that, and it sends a bit of a shiver down my spine, because it's one of those moments of you realizing that it was, your friend's father, and that it was the backseat of the car. And I think we chat a little bit about this during the week about the intelligence of spirit. But my question is probably, because I know there's a lot of people who are listening in who are with us tonight, they're on that path of development, or they have been for a while. There's many who are very empathic. And sometimes they're taking on a lot of the energy of spirit, and without realizing it. But as a young person, how did you come to manage that then, that like managing the energy and managing the connection with spirit for yourself?
Managing the connection, how do you mean, Les? Like,
as in, like obviously working with the spirit world in a way where, you are still able to not take on the energy of things and not take on what was happening, but to be able to, to understand it and work with it in a way that you could use it effectively. I don't know whether that's clear.
Yeah, okay. That I think looking back now, I brought it into my natural life. So I think what I'm seeing these days is people wanting to zoom into it. It's like a takeaway. We've become a takeaway society. It's like I was saying the other day at church, it's like driving past McDonald's and saying, look, I'll get a burger with the light, and can you just throw in a certificate of mediumship as well while you're at it, So I think you got to it's like it blends into your life. I went through different phases. I remember when I first started, I dreamt one night that, I woke up in the middle of the night. I could hear someone yell, oh God, someone help me. And I saw a car go under the water. And the next morning I was going to a rehearsal, and I said to the guy on the phone, I had this really weird dream, and said to my daughter, I had a really weird dream. And when I got in the car, I turned on the car, a woman's car had gone under the water that morning in Werribee Dam. And, I kind of followed that story, but I kind of recognized, okay, well, that's because I've picked it up in a dream. I'm psychic, I've picked it up in a dream, but let's not go overboard. I didn't create that, that was just something that happened, and I picked up on it. So I think you've got to, if you can weave it into your natural world, then it, our natural world informs our mediumship as well. And we learn in a natural, organic way, not just away from textbooks. There was another example. I was working at a call center at that time too. And I was seeing black crosses over people, and I'd walk in where there's like a row of desks, and there'd be all these black crosses. And I went to the supermarket, there were black crosses on people. I'd look over at the girl I was working with, there was a black cross over her. And then after a few days of that happening, there was I heard on the radio Princess Diana had died, and I stopped seeing the black crosses after that. So things were happening that where I was learning how to sort of interpret, I could, I'm feeling a wave of something. So just to be gentle on myself. And I think sometimes to be conscious that we have to disconnect as well. We have to kind of, we have to have that self-care. We have to take time for ourselves. Just walk out in nature, shut down as well, so that it doesn't become too overwhelming.
Yeah, no, that's good.
But I think to have it, for us to blend into our natural life, that's good too.
Yeah, thank you. Ella, do you have
I
another
don't know if I've answered the
question there
question
for Rhonda? Yeah, I think you did, because it's obviously about interpreting the symbols and the signs that we get. And like you said, it's understanding sometimes these things are happening in the natural world, as well. Yeah.
Yes, listening to you, Rhonda, I think your guide work with you this way, but you can recognize the symbols and the signs. So usually our guides will teach us their language. So those black crosses meant something, and in the future you will know how to interpret this particular one, yes? The symbols.
Yeah, I was going to say, the working with the guides, I remember, because I was thinking of a few good examples for the students out there, that I had a message one afternoon that my sister's car was going to catch on fire. And I just thought, that's kind of crazy. My sister's car is just going to catch on fire. But the message was really strong. And it was like not an argument, because I don't argue with the spirit world. It's like, I try to listen like I'm listening to another language, or I'm sensitive. It's like, because it's an honor to serve like that. So I just kept hearing it. Your sister's car's going to catch on fire. And I'm like, is this my guide? It's like, your sister's car's going to catch on fire. I'm like, how can you say that? Your sister's car's going to catch on fire. It's like 3 times. So I rang my sister and I said, look, how are you? Having a good day? Are you? So I'm being told your car's going to catch on fire. And she said, oh, Ronnie, I just think that's outrageous, and she sort of laughed.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I know, but I'm being told your car's going to catch on fire, Coral. And it was like really serious. And, she put the phone down, rah, rah, rah. 3 weeks later, her car caught on fire. Her partner was in the car with one of his friends. And it was a point where I thought, listen well, listen deeply, don't challenge them. I'm not going to challenge them. It was kind of that point where I'm like, okay, just listen.
And it's easy sometimes when that happens for the mind to get involved and to question or to doubt, and yet that's an impression, that's very strong, or it just comes through, and it's learning to trust that, isn't it? And we learn to trust it, I think, through experience. The more we experience and the more what we're given manifests or it turns up, the more that we're going, okay, that's a clear sign, that's a clear language, that's a clear message, and that builds that trust with our guides. Yeah. Very, very powerful. Rhonda, this might be a good time, because I know you kind of consolidate a lot of what your experiences were into your book, and your book Mystical. But, for those of you who, haven't connected with the energy of this book, but if there were kind of like 3 lessons or 3 main themes that would come from your book, what would they be? What were the kind of 3 messages you feel that are there for readers in your book?
Oh, well, that we're more than the physical. Those that we love now. Time is short, and if my soul's eternal, then this very moment right now is part of that eternity. I think it was the reason that I wrote the book was as a testament for the world, so that I just added my story to other mediums that are out there sharing their story, and that every medium, every story is so unique, every journey is so different, and that's okay. That's a good thing. But it was it was so different. I think with the beer can moving, and you know, that was a 1 in a million. We weren't like sitting for trance or doing anything like that. So I just thought, it's time to, you know, it's a bit of a crazy world, so maybe it's time just to share it and
To share it, yeah.
and just put it out there. But yeah, I think, you know, we have a limited time here. Time is short. So, yeah, doing the right thing and being of service, you know, is
And
good.
can I just ask, because obviously, you know, maybe as you said, it's memoirs of a psychic medium or spirit medium. There's probably obviously a lot of stories in there from your own experience. But as you were writing it, because I know there's a few authors and people who are writing who are here, but as you were writing it, did you feel them come in? Did you feel yourself being impressed in certain ways from spirit as
You
the
know,
book unfolded?
yeah, you know, the first, because I had a workplace injury and I had time. So I knew I had some time to kind of crunch it. But the first, it might sound like a bizarre thing to say, but the first kind of 10,000 words, because I actually culled it. I culled quite a bit of stuff out as well, just flowed out of me. And I thought, how am I even writing this? I mean, I'd written songs and I was good at English at school, but, you know, writing a book was a bit of a feat. But if you've got a story to tell, you can tell it. If you don't have a story to tell, it's harder to tell. You know, it's harder to do a kind of autobiography like that. But if you've banked up some stories, then they just flowed out of me. And so I had to just work out which of the ones I would, you know, put in. But yeah, it's possible. I might have had a writing guide with me. It seemed to flow.
Yeah, excellent. Ella, do you have another question for Rhonda? Because we're going to get close to our time where we'll hand over to Rhonda, but there's a couple of areas I want to cover. But do you have anything, Ella?
Yes, thank you, Les. I actually have a couple of questions, but how to build relationship with spirits around you, with your guide? How to develop the language communication, and also how to put boundaries around you, because we don't want to be at service 24/7. We need to sleep, or we have a private life. Would you like to give us a few tips for our audience who's still developing and might have a problem here or struggle here?
I think doing the one-to-one readings is really good for development. I see a lot now going from developing maybe straight to platform. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think the one-to-one relationships, like I worked in quite a few shops in Melbourne, and I read for a lot of different people from a lot of different areas in life and a lot of different situations. So I was put to the test a little bit. But I think the one-to-one readings were really beneficial. I think the development with spirit, like I'm still learning every day as well. I don't think I'll ever stop learning. But I think sensitivity and love will always fuel the language if you're sensitive to sensitivity and love, I think, and being humble and gracious. Like we can be wrong, you know, might not be 100% all the time. So not being too hard on yourself as well. I see a lot of mediums or psychics, they're very hard on themselves. So, I mean, we're human, you know, we're human beings. And that, you know, we're of service to the other. We're of service to the other person. So that I see that in pastoral care. It's not about me. It's not about how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling sad, that things have gone wrong for them, it's about them. You know, it's always about the other person. So so I'm mindful of that. As far as boundaries, I mean, I have to have boundaries in work as well, so that I don't get too overwhelmed. So self-care is important, however you do that, you know, jumping on a trampoline with the kids, or going for a swim, or listening to music. I know a lot of people say meditation. I was never, never did meditation till a bit later in my development. So maybe I was a bit naughty there, but sitting in the power is good because then spirit can work out how they're going to work with you. But I mean, I think spirit they already know how they're going to work with you anyway, you know.
And Rhonda, I'm going to change gears because I just want to find out. I know there's some people here who love music and love sound, but obviously, you know, you've been singing most of your life and there's a connection with music. You know, did spirit actually work with you from that aspect in guiding you? Like, I was, again, listening to the lyrics of that song we played at the beginning, and there's obviously that there. So can you just tell us a little bit about that connection, about music, your singing and spirit, and how that has come together?
It's funny, I always knew I was going to sing, even when I was really little.
Zippity
I
doo dah.
remember, yeah, pretty much. I remember like hijacking the funeral parlour and the chapel and just, you know, and just singing as a child, and just the acoustics in the chapel were great. Um, the connection between spirit and singing, when I think of some of the musicians that I've seen that I've not just worked with, but had been around, they were quite spiritual in themselves. They were channelers, you know, they were really talented in their craft. And they were able to use that talent to speak to people through music. So it became a healing modality. It's quite magical. It's quite music and sound touches our heart. You know, for me, it was always it was an emotional thing. I was able to release the emotion that I had in my heart. Was able to. Music was a language of expression, and I think when you look at other, you know, churches, not just spiritualism. I was in the car with my grandson today, and I said to him, "Oh, do you know who made the trees?" And he said, "No, Nana, who made the trees?" And I said, "Oh, God made the trees, and he made the ocean and the rivers." And he said, "Has anybody thanked God?" And I thought that was really lovely,
Very
you know.
cute.
So we kind of, if you look at other churches, they have that praise. So they have the music and the praise, the kind of giving back.
And that's really powerful, that music. I know when I've been in that praise or that worship sort of music, because you lose yourself. And it reminds me, because somebody at the church on the weekend who was doing the talk mentioned, you know, that when Elvis died, there was a book they found next to him. It was a book on spiritual metaphysics.
Wow.
And, you know, like, I mean, you look at him and his background, his connection with, you know, black music and spiritual music and all the gospel music. Like you said, he was almost like a channel, and, you know, like he would just get inspired in the middle of the night and want to sing, want to write. So, I mean, we all have that gift. We're all connected to this source and to this spirit. I think that's the amazing thing. And, you know, how we use our gifts on this world and how we use that channel, whether it's to write, whether it's to be a healer or a reader, quite amazing. Rhonda,
Sure.
before we kind of hand over to you, I know your current life now is in pastoral care, which is like, it's interesting how it's all connected. But I really just want to chat a little bit about, obviously, you know, you're working with people now at the end of their lives and their families. I know you're doing your master's, I think, in pastoral care. Is that right? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, doing this sort of work, I mean, do you connect? Have you had connections, obviously, with their loved ones or guides, angels, as they're passing? And I suppose the question I have is, you know, how do we here who are doing this work support the space for our loved ones too, as they're getting ready to pass?
Well, like, you know, in the hospital working in pastoral care, it would be unprofessional really to be saying stuff like, "Oh, you know, like they're here, they're just waiting. I'm picking up an auntie, her name's, you know, Edith." That would be unorthodox. And as far as supporting our loved ones when they're at end of life, it's about love. It's about you know that their journey's about to end. And I don't know of anybody else out there. I remember when Dad was dying and we weren't there. We didn't get, he passed, I think it was 2 a.m. at night. But as I was driving, we got the phone call. We were driving to the venue where he was, it was like I could see like a film reel in my head of like events of our life together, and it was kind of like a rush. I think it's just loving them, and supporting them in any way that is conducive for them.
Yeah, great. Well, wonderful.
There's no magical. Everyone's different, everybody's different what they really want. But it speaks to me of the now. It speaks of if we're eternal, if our soul's eternal, this is part of our eternal journey right at this very moment. And so love who you love now, express that now. That's important.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing. I just thought I'd put that in at the very end. So, Rhonda, I think what we'll do because of time, we'll probably hand over to you in a moment, and I'm just going to open up the screen so everyone's on the screen. And I know you've got a little process or something you want to take people through, and that would be nice because we did chat a little bit about it during the week. So I'm just going to unpin us, and then we're going to just blend in, and we'll hand over to you. All right?
Okay. Yes, thanks. So I thought I'd just do a meditation for you all, and I'll just guide you through it. So if you'd like to take a deep breath in and just release. And if you just want to relax, close your eyes. Become aware of your breathing. And take a deep breath in again and just relax. Become aware of a white light that's surrounding you as we go deeper down and deeper. And we're breathing steady, slowly. Let your mind relax and enjoy this state of peace. Imagine yourself sitting outside under the stars. They glitter and shine in the night sky. And there's a gentle breeze as you take it all in. As you imagine the night sky, you see starlight flow and a beam of light surrounding you, just like a cocoon. Let this light fill your body, flowing to every part of you, every part that needs healing, every part that needs nourishment. As you are surrounded in this healing affirmation of light, imagine now that the spirit world, the God source, those that love you and work with you and know you, are able to give you a gift that is unique for you, that you will be able to understand and work with and bring back to the everyday world. Take some time now to receive this gift, to view this gift, to feel this gift that is given to you unconditionally through the love of the spirit world. I'll leave you just for a moment to explore this gift that is yours. We thank the Divine Spirit that work with us. And now slowly, when you're ready, take some deep breaths in. As you slowly return to the natural world. And when you're ready, open your eyes, having thanked the spirit world for imbuing you with your special gift, where you can help others and yourself. When you're ready, return.
Good. But Rhonda, I know we chatted during the week, and I asked you, and we were chatting about two things. You know, said you were quite amazed by the intelligence of spirit, and obviously the gifts that spirit bring to us. And you know, I was on platform on Sunday, and I had one reading I did, and it was only one thing, and it was funny how that one thing connected with one person, and it moved them so deeply. And I knew it wasn't from me; it was actually from spirit. But yeah, you know, can you want to just share a little bit, you know, as we open up to some questions now from people about this intelligence of spirit and your experience of the intelligence of spirit?
Oh, golly. There's a few. I remember one afternoon, my daughter and I were living together, and I sensed a young male in the spirit world. He was saying, remember me tomorrow. That's how I was interpreting it. And I got his name, but, you know, just say, for argument's sake, it was David. And, you know, even though I'd been reading and doing platform for a while, I wondered, am I hearing this correctly? And he said, you know, please remember me tomorrow, you know, David. And again, it was 3 times, and I said, I promise, you know, but if you're making a promise, you better keep it. You know, making a promise to God, making a promise to the spirit world, you better keep it. And I got on platform and I said, you know, hi, I'm Rhonda, you know, medium, blah, blah, blah. And before I start, just want to mention, there was a man in the spirit world by the name of David who came through yesterday, and family members were in the audience. And so I recognized that, you know, it's not a party trick. It's affecting a lot of people. You know, it has a ripple effect. And I think, you know, and that we're all connected. So definitely an intelligence to the spirit world.
Definitely an intelligence. And on that point, I think it'd be nice to open up if anybody has any questions. So, you know, while Rhonda's here, maybe anything about what you've heard tonight, or an experience, or if there's something. If you do, you can just give me a wave and we'll unmute you. And Francis, thank you, Francis. You know how to unmute, so I'll let you unmute and speak.
Did I see everyone on the view, or?
You've got 2 screens because there's quite a few tonight, so you might have to scroll back and forth. But hopefully, once Francis starts speaking, you'll be able to see her.
Yeah.
Hello, Rhonda. It's lovely to see you. And it was
Hi, Francis. How are you?
Thank you. Good, thank you. I was pondering as you were talking about, you know, getting those quite succinct messages. Was it from a particular guide that you have that you're getting that message from spirit, or was it just came out of the blue?
I think, was there one in particular that?
Well, you had to warn your sister about her.
Yeah. Well, I felt it was my guide, but, you know, I think maybe my guides have changed a little bit. I always feel like I want to belong to the one that claimed me from the start. So to me, I was just getting a message really strongly, and I felt, yes, it was from the guide. It was from my guide to tell my sister. I think it was mostly just tell your sister as well, like this message has to come through. You know, you have to tell her. But it was also an example of me trusting in what I'm hearing as well.
Can I ask, Rhonda, is it more, it sounds like more clairaudience for you. You get a lot that you hear. Has that
I
always been
kind,
the case, or do you get more than that?
I think, yeah, I think if you go back maybe to the car with the friend in the back, my friend's father in the backseat of the car, I could see that quite clear. I could see it, I could see the guy in the back in my head, a vision in my head, but I could also feel it because sometimes when we're getting the clairvoyant messages, we're feeling it as well. With the clairaudience, maybe like you, Francis, doing the music has stimulated that, stimulated that modality. Because I remember as a young girl, having to learn songs, knowing when to come in. I love accents. If I hear people with accents, I'm like, where are you from? Where's that, accent from? So I'm very orally conscious, if that makes sense. And even teaching my grandkids just writing and or reading at the moment. It's all about words. It's all about putting them together. And I hear with my heart, though, if that makes sense. And I see with my heart, if that makes sense as well. When I first started doing platform, I tended to see light around people. When I first started at the hospital, it was a day of my interview. I walked past a room and it was like I could see someone standing at the end of the bed. It's never like I shut that off when I'm working at the hospital because it's unprofessional. But I think it's on that particular occasion, it was more hearing.
Yeah.
It was more hearing. And I knew it was a guy. I knew it was, to me, I felt, yeah, it's my guide.
And I think for people, it's understanding and distinguishing, isn't it? Because there's different energy. And I suppose the more you start doing this work is that discernment of the energy. Is this a loved one? Is it somebody else's? Is it a guide? And they have different, like I know as soon as my guides come in, I just feel it through my body. I feel, and I know it's them as compared to with spirit. Very good. Anybody else got a question at all while Rhonda's here? And while we do that, I feel I need to come to somebody. I'm not doing readings tonight, but I feel there's somebody here. There's a grandfather energy, and you've been thinking of writing a book, and it's almost like I feel a grandfather energy wants to come through you and actually encourage you to do some writing, okay, as to write some of the family history. So if that's you, this is just encouragement. I don't know who it's coming to, but I just have to put that out because they're here. Anybody else have a question at all? I'm just going to go to the other page. Just give us a wave if you do. I know Eve is smiling, but I don't know whether she's quite got a question there.
No.
Something. Oh, Heather's got one. So Heather, I saw your hand. And thank you. You might need just to unmute. That's all. And Heather's another author. So.
Hi,
Heather.
Rhonda.
Hi.
I've noticed, I don't know how many grandchildren you have, but have you noticed, I noticed that they're incredibly open and will talk about spirit and seeing auras or, I don't know if you've had those sort of conversations with them. I've found children incredibly open about spirit and.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. My grandchildren one's 5 and one's 3, so they're probably a bit little at the moment. But I know particularly the grandson has shown signs of it. We were sitting watching a cartoon, and I was really worried about the recent dramas we're all having with interest rate rises and all the rest of it, and I was just really, really, really worried one day watching TV, and he was like, I was here and he was there, and he nudged me in the ribs and he said, Nana, stop worrying and watch the cartoon. And like I hadn't given any impression that, to him, I was, just, I think, look, I don't know. They say my daughter's very psychic, and my mum and dad was more spiritual. Mum was a bit more practical, so things didn't happen around her. It was interesting the beer can moved with dad, because he was just so into it. You know, he was into, he had a spiritual mindset. So I don't know. I think I'm waiting for maturity really before I would tell them any of the stories I've told you tonight. You know, because I wouldn't want them to be sort of carried away with it. But you know, that'll come later on, I think. But we've yet to see, you know, as they get older. But for sure, children are incredibly open. You know, they're unfiltered. They're not kind of socialized the way that we are. We can get a bit left brain about things. Yeah, it's a good pickup, Heather.
Yeah, thanks.
Wonderful. Excellent, everyone. Well, I think we've come to the end of the night. So again, just first of all, just like to thank Rhonda for being with us. Before Rhonda disappears, I know some of you might be asking, you know, where do I get a hold of this book? How can I find out about this book, Mystical Memoirs of a Psychic Medium? So Rhonda, where can we get it? Where do we find this and can take a look at it?
Yeah, I've got it here. You can get it on Amazon. This is it.
Okay.
You can get it on amazon.com.au.
Could you read it and send it telepathically to all of us?
Mm-hmm.
It's got the song in the front.
Does it? Okay.
You know, yeah, there you go.
Fantastic.
But it's just, you know, bits and pieces and there's some teachy things in there as well. So
yeah. And so it's on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, and I think it's through, you can order it through Dimmicks and some of the bookstores around.
As well. Okay,
yeah.
So if people feel connected to it energetically, they can always
if you feel connected,
and grab a copy. But look, Rhonda, thank you for joining us. It was great to kind of connect with you and find out more about you. It's just a fascinating background how spirit have worked with you. I think when we look at the life journey from, you know, there's always been this connection, and obviously they've still got more planned for you, I think, while you're here, which is great. But I just want to thank you for sharing tonight, and thank you because I think when we hear these stories, we know we're not alone. We know we're part of a community. We know that we can talk about these things with like-minded people, and also we can get inspired by other people's journeys, whether it's just about taking a pen and writing, or, you know, putting you know, our words into a song and being a channel for spirit and an ambassador for spirit. So thank you very much. So can everybody just give Rhonda a round of applause on the screen? And I want to thank you all for joining us. It's been great to have you join us on this cold Melbourne night. If you're in Melbourne, just stay tuned. We will have another Telos live that'll be coming towards the end of August. And on the 4th of August, we have our normal Friday night open circle on the 4th, and also the 18th of August coming up. So come and join us in Upper Ferntree Gully if you're around, where we have connection, discussion, meditation, healing, and we really also get together with just like-minded people. So thank you once again, everyone. Great to see you all. Enjoy your evening.